Hello. I will try to speak about our experience with introducing some local platforms. I will be focusing on two.
And Aigars, this time he will try to not speed up, he will try to be slower.
Yes.
So if he speeds up, you can say please slower.
Yes, absolutely. So, I will focus on two local platforms, namely Microsoft PowerPlatform and Mendix. We also have, as enterprise, naturally, a lot of experience also with Apex. We have deployed very large solutions in Latvia running on top of Apex. And I think they impact you every year at some moment or month. So essentially it's the back office of State Revenue Service runs on Apex. So all of their employees who are reviewing stuff, they don't use public portal. Well, probably they maybe also use public portal, but the back office, let's say business as usual stuff happens on top of Apex. So, and I will speak about some projects where I have personal experience with. One of them I worked like very directly on. One of them I was doing more like a review and some suggestions. And a bit about platforms. Let's go to the next piece. Yeah, and a bit about myself. My name is Aigars, and I've worked with Emergn for the last 4 years almost. I started as solution architect, and then after we had some reorganization, I ended up in a role of practice lead for solution architecture practice. So in solution architecture practice, we are around 10, 12 people. Most of them are based in Latvia. We have some colleagues in Portugal and one colleague in US. And before joining Emergn, I lived for a while in Estonia, for 4 years almost, and worked in Microsoft Development Center Estonia on some products which you maybe know, like Skype, Teams, Kaisala, and Luis.ai. In localization team, responsible for, in some cases, for choosing in which languages products are being localized and that they work in these languages. And in other cases, I was also owning infrastructures that ensures that developer English strings get translated by humans within 2 days. Or by machines in a few minutes. And before that, I get to meet Aigars as evangelist for a local Latvian Microsoft, and I started my career as software engineer. Anyways, and I play tennis, and this was meant to be a picture of Steam Deck, but it doesn't look like that well. So as a company, Emergn in Latvia was known by a bit different name. I think it's actually more than 30 years old as a company. In Latvia, however, or let's say, there was a company, let's say, merger and acquisition activities that happened some 5-6 years ago. And this Emergn is a company that was established in the UK 15 years ago, and we have offices now in various places. And so what else I can say? And we are very focused on customer satisfaction and word of mouth, and a lot of our business is based on referrals. So some of the companies that we have worked with on various things. So in terms of services, we work both in software engineering, enterprise like leadership on how to change the way how companies are structurizing themselves and advising them to kind of drive the transformation within themselves. So in Latvia is our biggest location. Almost 300 employees are working out of Latvia, so half. We also have a strong local business in terms of customer base and so on, but we are also serving our global customers. So the question is, why, when we are looking at low-code or in automation platforms, so why businesses need that? And if we are trying to model what businesses are built upon, so good business probably means that it has some value and it adds something to their customers, to their people, to Leaders in the company also have some goals to how they are shaping the way how business is run and organized. And investors are interested still to continue to invest into this company so that it also can develop and ultimately grow. So growth is a major definition of what a thriving business is. And to that end, when we are looking at things, let's say if you're looking as an architect from that perspective, we are typically designing target experiences of what is the solution or service that we are providing to our consumers, who hopefully will that will lead us also making money ultimately. However, we also recognize that there is some actual experience that people are getting, and in most cases there are some gaps between these things. And so what we can do, if we are breaking down this target experience is built upon solutions which exist of various, let's say, capabilities, and capabilities are implemented in multiple ways, potentially. They could be implemented one way, they could be, and these implementations could be human interactions, they could be systems, they could be a lot of ways how to achieve that. Going to that point, they sit on top of some kind of platforms. So when we are looking from large enterprise perspective, somehow in our experience we have seen that all of the companies are trying to make bets on certain platforms, and they are trying to limit their choices. So they are adding platform constraints on what they are doing and how they are achieving that. Because unless they are doing that, they have unmanageable zoo of things in their ecosystem and in their house. And it makes very hard for leaders to do their job in terms of listening to the market, what is the actual need of the market, and readjusting things. So these platforms are typically the things which companies try to lock in. The more governed companies are, the more they lock in this platform, but there could be some exceptions to that rule as well. And when we are looking at this thing from local perspective, the naive representation is that it enables us to have rapid user feedback. However, when we are looking also from enterprise point of view, that's not always the case. Because as in previous presentation it was highlighted, sometimes you try to do like a very quick fixes and improvements, maybe even in production. However, the case here is that depending on your company and culture, which is the main thing that defines how companies are working in reality is the culture, and the industry where company works, you might have some processes that are preventing that. But conceptually speaking, it's about when we are looking at these local tools, we have to think about it's a way how to get in your enterprise and deploy this innovation culture and ability where every voice matters, and that all of us can make an impact. I will steal some slides from SAP on their viewpoint. But the idea here is that when enterprises are of some significant size, they typically will have some development capability. And that capability will be probably in some like building very serious applications where company might believe that they have a competitive edge, which is something that adds differentiation to the company. And they will invest into that, and they will have teams that are building these products. However, also when looking from IT perspective, and like also from my real life problems, depending on how big is your scope of influence or how much things you need to do, some problems are maybe not big enough for you to care about. So for example, when I was working at Microsoft, when I was working in Skype scope, we cared about some standardization things about, like, let's use unified lists for country and language names. You know, there's each year there's some country who changes its name. Like I lived through like Swaziland changed its name to Swaziland, and or Czech Republic became Czechia. And then you need to deploy all of these changes as soon as possible. Of course, there's some grace periods, but you want to provide the best user experience to people and more immersion so that they feel respected. And you need to deploy these things across all of your product portfolio. At that time, we had around, I don't know, we call them release vehicles, around 100 different products that we were releasing. You don't really see them, but let's say they could be applications, services, or whatnot. So in all of them, we need to ensure this consistency. And I worked on that project. So then my team's scope was increased to care about whole Microsoft localization things. So we became part of a team that was doing Xbox games localization through Game Studios, Voice Actors Studio things, then Windows, Office, everything except I think Azure and Dynamics products. And then this problem disappeared. It was not important enough anymore. We had some lists, we had some procedures in places, we dealt with it, we outsourced it. We had another bigger problems and a bigger fish to fry. How to move to better CI/CD pipeline integration so that we don't store unneeded files in repos of localizations that don't break builds and these kind of things. So to get just in time, let's say, localization capability. So that was our biggest problems. So it means that when we are looking also at capabilities, idea here is that core developers will care about this big thing, matters for whole enterprise thing. Then local developers will be the gap and bridge between some core development capabilities and citizen developers. And local developers typically will try to address problems which are of department size. So some things that internally in a company could affect, I don't know, something 30, 40 people kind of impact. Citizen developers typically care about stuff that matters only to them. So they will only optimize things for them, which is great. And the question is how you pick a platform. So from SAP point of view, you could always build your Fiori applications, but that requires already a bit more advanced development skills. And so their recommendation is that for these kind of scenarios, with low-code and citizen developers, you use either own SAP build, which is Aigars, Finnish company, but SAP acquired recently, some years ago, added with some other products from SAP, or Mendix, which is a company which was coming from Netherlands, acquired by Siemens some years ago, and so on. So that's kind of one perspective. But the idea is that both of them could work same, and in this case also these platforms enable you to add also custom code, and you, in some cases, if you want to make it work in enterprise, you also need, as local developers, you typically also need to have some core developer skills. In Mendix case, that means programming in Java or React. So, yeah. So we'll speak a bit about platforms. Microsoft Power Platform. So, who is using Microsoft Power Platform daily? Okay, a bit, not too much people. Okay, so I will do it at very high level. If need be, I can go on deeper level, but that depends if you ask me questions, and also you can ask questions me at any time. So the first part is Power Apps. So that's a platform that originally comes from some 15 years ago. Microsoft still has a product like a CRM product, and there was a very popular concept of XRM. So essentially on top of that CRM product, the idea was that you can build any kind of business case management application and whatnot. And they have created now that as a local capability, place where you can build applications, various ones inside of Power Apps. Power Automate is more evolution of, there was similar product, but this is built from ground up, but it's also a migration path. In SharePoint, you could have some workflow automation parts. So, idea here is that in Power Automate, you can automate certain, let's say, system interactions, connect APIs together, and automate things. It also has, and they have added robotic capabilities there, where you can automate stuff that happens on screens. It's built on top of some testing frameworks. So if you are a tester who does test automation, then you kind of already know some elements of robotics process automation as well. Virtual agents is more for building knowledge-based chatbots, ultimately speaking. Back from a day when I think the original inspiration came when Facebook launched its opened APIs for building chatbots on Messenger. It was some, I don't know, 7 years ago. And it was first chatbot craze, and after that, ultimately it ended up in evolution of building this kind of place and studio where you can build users, virtual agents. Power Pages was a recent addition for building based on top of data that you collect in your enterprise. You can build also some enterprise websites. And Power BI is the place where you build your dashboards and ultimately build some kind of models for your data structures and so on, from whatever places you have in your enterprises. So for your data analysis needs, or more reporting needs actually. And the core existence here, very similar as in case of the Oracle Apex, as was discussed, is Dataverse. And Dataverse ultimately is a semantic model of how all of your data about you are structured inside of your enterprise. So if you're using more Microsoft products, it becomes richer, so you get all of the data from whatever Dynamics products you are using. You could also integrate in Dataverse data from SAP systems, and so on, so it gets expanded and you can essentially build and customize applications using Power Platform and leveraging the data which is there. How it looks like from development experience and what real applications looks there in terms of architecture and elements here. So you can see you have some kind of application where you build some user interface where people are interacting. Then you might have some flow for sending files, getting approvals in, or whatever. And if you need to do some nice visuals or dashboards, you use Power BI ultimately for that. In terms of data sources and connections, you could have, you can integrate with whatever APIs, and there's like a lot of connectors. I think more than 1,000 ones are built in for various SaaS products and whatnot. However, core idea is that your application data are stored in this Dataverse. It used to be called Common Data Service. And then you can also integrate with whatever databases you have in your company, might be also on premises. And all of this runs as a software as a service solution. So it means that you don't care about hosting. It's hosted by Microsoft, probably on some Azure data centers, depending on your tenant, region placements and whatnot. So if you're a European company, it will be in Europe. And you can integrate with some APIs. User experience is limited. You can make adjust your comments and taste preferences, whatever you like it or not. But there are some very limited customization options that you can do building Power Platform applications, mostly. Typical applications that you want to build is something which is model driven, so it depends on data models that you are designing, and that will achieve you most productivity as when you are building the application. You can also build pixel perfect applications, which where you are drawing everything using Canvas. However, it takes more time, and who has time for that? So that's one thing. When I was showing, like, when we were doing evaluation with our client in Germany, they were not very impressed with this UI customization capabilities. In terms of development experience, it's very similar to what we saw also in Apex case. So you have you are entering in some browser, selecting some components, configuring them, and doing that. I think it's maybe more limited in some ways because you. Let's say, if you're building model-driven apps, you have less options how to organize things, but ultimately you can get job done. So Mendix. We can see user experience looks a bit better. So here we can ultimately, it's what you get here is you have some set of built-in CSS files that you can customize and override with whatnot. In our experience, we customize the design team to match corporate internal design standard. For professional designer who is used to doing that work, it took a few weeks of a job. So generally saying, I would say that it takes something like up to 6 weeks, and you can have your own design if you're standardizing default components and not building new ones. And of work. It works in various form factors, so naturally responsive. Same applies also actually to Microsoft scenario. Yeah, a bit about Mendix technology. So in Mendix case, in architecture-wise, you can deploy it however you want. There is also a SaaS option where you have everything running in cloud. In their cloud, you can also deploy it on whatever hyperscaler you prefer, or also on premises if you want. From deployment options, the application backend ultimately is Docker container. And when you are building an app, you can wrap it up in a nice container. You need to provide it with a connection string to some database, let's say Postgres, or Oracle, or Microsoft, whatever. You might need also to establish some integration if you have some web service integrations which are needed and whatnot, but that's your own choice. And you need to have some file storage. So if you're on cloud, you will use some kind of blob storage for objects, stores, or S3. If you are on premises, you will use some file share or something like that. Or you use the most popular solution today to make all of on-premises things look nice, Minio, and make it into object store. You can publish apps which will work offline, but if you build logic so that they do that in iOS or Android, and essentially you can also have these are progressive web applications built on top of React or React Native. In terms of logic, how it works, so on backend you have a server which has a lot of things and engines that executes. In client side of things, either in web or in mobile apps, you can run your business logics as nanoflows. So on server side, all of your business logics would be running through microflow engine, but then so there is a bit of separation, what runs on client and what runs on server. All of the state is stored into database, so it's absolutely stateless. Follows there was some 12 architecture principles website, you can check it out. So essentially it's absolutely stateless, so it sends all of the state information of each request to client on what happens for users. And it has all of the various modules to make it enterprise compliant and other things. Developer experience, nuances. So for citizen developers, idea is that you are using browser experience, which is very somehow meant for users who are not developers. But if you are building some serious applications in medium to high complexity, or you need to add some specialized functionality, you will use their studio. And the studio essentially is rather complicated, if you have developer background, you will feel more comfortable using that and be able to achieve things. You also can write, if you need some Java classes to extend functionality or create some integrations. I don't know if you need to build some kind of integration with something that is not available out of the box. So you will write potentially some custom Java code. Then for that you use your own editor of preference, ultimately. Yeah, so that's a bit about these two platforms. Has anybody used Mendix? Only one person, great. So if I lied, you can call me out. So then I will speak about our experience. So we had a client, I was working on this project. So I cannot disclose client names, but I can say that it was a very German company, works all across the globe and has to follow various rules and compliance regulations and whatnot. And in terms of IT, technology is a very tightly managed ship. So everything was running on top of these Microsoft platforms, SAP, naturally, Germany after all. And they were also building some custom applications in, like with the, I don't know, I think in their case it was like Java code or something like that. But from IT perspective, IT was developing all of the solutions and the needs for business as Fiori applications. So very tight ship. I'm not sure also they hired a lot of people from SAP to work there. Then the need and the problem that they had was that they realized that IT is not building anything for business units which had 30, 40 people. So they had maybe making a lot of money, maybe impact was in millions or tens of hundreds of millions of euros, but nobody was building any applications for them. So to that end, idea was that we helped them to select what platform to choose. Based on their IT infrastructure, we were looking at something that would not expand their, let's say, IT space too much, but would still fit in their tightly managed ship. And what are their options? We also tried to assess, and I consciously left the years here because hindsight now makes us smarter, but some of these predictable things were rather on point. So in terms of functionalities, what we realized that all of the cloud provider SaaS applications will develop faster. There will be a lot more functionality coming in, and they will grow and expand. However, if you are building something that works on premises, so not on cloud, then your functionality will evolve slower, and you will get less value for the buck, how to say. In terms of maintenance, naturally on premises means that you need to have more staff, more people working on the things, more complicated management. And if you are using SaaS services, then your IT maintenance needs are a bit lower. And in terms of operational costs, with cloud it's somehow predictable, typically based on a number of users in all of these services in their case. And in non-cloud options, you also have element of that, but you also have infrastructure costs and hardware maintenance costs. And depending on how complex is your IT infrastructure, there could be some additional costs as well. In terms of security, doing additional penetration testing, and yada yada. Also looked at the comparing same kind of solution, whatever it works on premises versus cloud as well, not only two different solutions. So here we also try to find the differences and what would be the economical factors here. I won't go through them. Well, I mean, it's pretty much the same as previous one. So what was ultimately what happened? So because the project was some time ago, we did things, and I now have the benefit of hindsight. So ultimately, because they were highly regulated, as they were afraid of going to cloud because they didn't believe they had to get a rapport developed with the regulators in each country and location, they went with the on-premises solution. However, when they made this decision, it was very clear to them that cloud is the future. Also in their strategy, cloud is the future, and they were aggressively pursuing because the company is one of the biggest innovators in the space, and they are trying to push the boundaries all of the time. Also, they want to attract talent. So for them, big problem is attracting new colleagues ultimately, and they want to build and have the internal applications, even internal applications, look very nice, so that people are feeling great when they're working there and doing their daily jobs. So they knew that cloud will be the future. So when we were doing assessment, we also assessed whatever there's financial sense to migrate everything to cloud, or to migrate even to different platform when it will pay for itself back, and these kind of things. So naturally, at that time, Mendix licenses were 2 or 3 times more expensive per user than Power Platform licenses. Both platforms have changed their pricing, so at this moment I think they're more closer, but and I think Mendix has more flexibility in terms of pricing than Microsoft is offering. Microsoft actually is generally not very flexible with pricing, but other companies are a lot more flexible. So depending on your use cases, you could arrange your deals and your business scenarios as well. So what they did is initially they launched on-premise solution running in containers. Some of the business units already started creating applications. After 2 years, they made a corporate decision that cloud is okay, let's go to cloud. So all of their new use cases are being built on top of cloud. They migrated some scenarios to cloud. I think one business unit probably still is using it because they invested a lot of effort and money essentially to build operating system for their business unit. So all of their stuff happens inside of that application, so it's just too much work for them to redo, and energy is already spent. So unless some people will change, they're good to go. They might change infrastructure part to cloud hosted solution from on-prem, so they will get some benefits there. But in terms of capabilities, they're happy. What else? Oh yeah, and another thing. When we are looking from governance standpoint, what was the main thing that all of these platforms are trying to standardize and make manageable from IT perspective? So to get rid of so-called shadow IT. So what is the element, the dread of each IT managers? Excel and Access applications. It's the worst. Because these are applications which are not manageable. You can build a lot of business processes and capabilities within them, And because it was allowed to have it on your computer, naturally, citizen developers are doing what citizen developers are doing. Are they building business applications on top of Excels or Accesses, and so on. So idea here with these platforms is to empower people in organization to build something in an environment which is managed by IT, and then IT can take on ownership of that. So that's also kind of rather important aspect to that. So yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next case study. So rather recently, this couple of months ago, we got approached by a company who said that they want to build something for ships, cruise ships, namely. So that would be, well, something like this, but in real life. So idea is to build a solution and platform for cruise ships to manage all of the crew activities. So as we can guess, cruise ships probably take a ton of people to run, so around 1,000 people on each ship, and they wanted to have digital application where they could do all of their business processes and review that. What we did is we tried to work them also like from product management prism on assessing what is the business case they are pursuing. So in their case, they want to build a new platforms. They have customers who are interested in buying this platform and deploying across multiple cruise lines and companies who are interested in using that. The only problem is they don't have this platform at this moment. So they need to build it, and they need to build it somehow rather fast, because their biggest risk is that if they build something for many, many years and achieve full functionality, then business viability will be gone. And customer desirability and their interest also might be lost in the medium term. So they need to build something today while facing a lot of technical challenges and not understanding whole set of risks and so on. So initial thought is like, what are their options? So you can do, you can buy off the shelf some kind of ERP solution or something among the lines. That you can deploy, or field service application and address challenges, but then these customers also have their custom needs, some integrations probably, and some other bits and pieces how these apps should look like and feel. So there are some limitations that creates for them. They could develop some custom software, probably as well, great. Of course, they don't have developers for that and so on, so there's a lot of another level of risks. So they ultimately they are thinking, okay, local platform will give us enough of boost and future flexibility for developing this kind of solution. So what they have then now, next challenge, they have already some investment done in ServiceNow for other lines of businesses where this company is operating. So they're thinking, okay, so ServiceNow also should have some apps that can work offline, so let's look at that. And so on, that it already has a lot of functionality which is similar to what potentially on ships needs to be done, so they can customize it and extend, or they arrive that they will also like to view what is Mendix essentially as platform offering, so they can build it on top of there. In Mendix case, one of the biggest strengths when we're looking at their application needs is that you can also make it work in a somehow decentralized manner, and you can also build something in a hub and spoke pattern, meaning that each ship does not always have internet connection. So you need to make your apps that their core brains are actually residing inside of ship. So you need to have some kind of server element and storage centrally on a ship, and then you can decide whether you are using mobile apps for all the crew which work offline or connect to ship's Wi-Fi and then synchronize the data. You can also synchronize your data when your ship has connection from this, let's call it server component, back to the ground, when you have internet, when you are connected to the port, or when you have your satellite internet working, and so on. So as we also discussed with colleagues, like, oh, but there's no Starlink, everybody's using Starlink, internet's available for everybody all of the time. I have another project that we are working on in Ukraine, and Starlink is not working always. If it's cloudy, it doesn't work as well. You cannot get bandwidth through. So and so on. So that's also kind of things that you need to understand. And so with Mendix, essentially the idea is that you can have a lot more flexibility in terms of your hybrid deployment scenario, and that is a very big advantage. And in terms of integrations, you can also adopt less chatty protocols also to exchange only information what's needed. So maybe some questions in these cases before I go into my summary part. No? Okay. So ask the chat, essentially, what are the reasons why enterprises are...
what about ships? This project somehow...
Yeah. What are they?
What's the status of
So they are now starting to build applications. They are in the process of acquiring setting up teams for building...
but with no code, yeah?
Yes, yes. So they made a decision to go with Mendix, but it's not yet alive.
Let's meet after 5 years.
Yes, yes, exactly. So then I asked some chat questions. What are the benefits of adopting these tools? So chat gave me some answers, but however, it's a chat, so we know that you have to be a smart person and also recognize what are your experiences. So in my point of view is that in terms of accelerated development, it's more a cultural enabler. So if your company wants to achieve more capabilities and empower people to optimize their work, increase their own productivity, which is naturally the goal of management. So management needs to empower people for these things. So it's an enabler for changing culture. In terms of cost efficiency, I would say no. First of all, you have license fees. Development also costs money. You might gain some time to market benefits with using these platforms, but you also have some, depending on a platform choice, you either have already built in a lot of internal integrations, or you need to build them for it to start working and so on. So there is a bit of investment regardless. I would say cost is definitely not really a factor when we are looking at these things, if we are looking as a platform level decision for enterprise. Agility, yes. So you are able to react faster, improve things in these scenarios where you're using that. You are empowering the people and company to optimize their work in safe and managed environments, educating them on best practices and all of these things. Great. So they are not creating more security vulnerabilities. As we know, these days we have a lot more cyber attacks from government-sponsored actors. So building on top of platforms which are managed by IT is actually very important, because if your people are building their own applications in uncontrolled environment on top of Excel or Access or whatever, then they can just make some mistakes which are very painful for a company. In terms of future-proofing, it's also a very interesting point. It applies actually to a lot of frameworks, but when you're building low-code applications, you build your business logic once, and then you can just update underlying platform, like rebuild the application, recompile it with latest versions. If your application is rather simple and there is no breaking changes, which sometimes happens, but generally there shouldn't be much breaking changes. You actually always get latest and greenest in terms of like dependencies and code pieces. If you're building custom application, you anyways need to do that, and you need to maintain development teams. So there is a bit actually of benefit in future-proofing your applications. Like classical example is if you build a lot of your business on top of Angular, JS, what do? You rewrite it to something else. And then you hope that that next stuff where you rewrote it will last long enough to survive. Whatever it's, I don't know, React or Angular, which is not JS based, or Vue, or I don't know, something else. Integration capabilities, so yes, there is always marketplaces, there is a lot of connectors and things that you can extend these low-code applications with. They somehow work okay-ish, but you also need to do some assessment of what are your APIs that you have in your company. Do you manage your APIs? Are they, do you have a process for exposing the data with these APIs, or getting secrets shared and so on? So you need to kind of, it depends on your let's say, maturity of API management capabilities in enterprise from one point of view, and then it depends on platform for how well it's integrated. So if you're using everything in cloud on Microsoft platform, probably you will get a lot of benefits there. If you don't, you probably won't get that much benefits, a bit less. Same with other platforms as well. So governance, yes, but we have to understand where it goes. But governance means also one thing. So we improve agility, but governance also can kill agility. I mean, the function historically of enterprise architecture review boards is to kill ideas and destroy agility, so at core level. So to say no more than yes. In that sense, governance needs to be, but governance needs to be made in a way that it's invisible and it works behind the scenes. So you need to have visibility and control, but it's not working as a, let's say, gate stopper, it's more working as an advisor, and management happens essentially a bit behind the scenes. So that's something very important to understand in terms of how you develop, enable this capability at enterprise level. From user experiences, well, you can guess already the answer. Depends on the platform which pick, and also on which kind of way of building apps in that platform you use. In innovations and competitive edge, yes. So this is, as I said, culture enabler. So in terms of optimizing your internal works, it is a great way how to expand your solutions. Another thing that we have to consider today is that most of our core business programs or solutions are moving into SaaS model. That means that if we want to add some or business-specific functionality, we anyways have to build this as something separate outside of this core business. Like if you're using today like ERP software, like from, let's use SAP example, or even Oracle example. What was ERP that Oracle runs? Something with N. Okay, anyways, NetSuite, yeah. So let's say you're using NetSuite or you're using Dynamics, then today vendor will push you towards using SaaS product. Great, but if you want to customize it, you build something outside of this product, and that allows you to have seamless version upgrades in the product. So configurations there is fine in these SaaS products, but no, customizations need to be taken out. So that's also allows you to keep these innovations and enhancements with you as things are moving. And that all leads us into a nice working essentially enterprise, which should lead to more experimentation, more frequent releases, and essentially consumers should have lesser gap of target experience and actual experience. So that's kind of the gist of it. Questions? Wait, I can go back.
Same question. What about testing all these no-code environments?
Great environments. So typically, let's say, depends. So most of these solutions will offer classical 3-layer environments, which you can use essentially to create your application, experiment with, let's say, with yourself.
Stage production?
Yes, yes, yes. And go through stagings there, yeah. And in terms of testing, it's also a bit magical thing. I think it really depends on scenario when you're looking. So you have to, well, these days, I guess my general answer about testing is always, let's use risk-based approaches. Because there are things where you have higher risk and things where you actually, and also depending on your product life cycle ultimately, or thing life cycle. If you are in a stage where you don't have product market fit, will your target consumers care about your application working flawlessly? If you're in financial sector, probably yes. If you are in some other sector, maybe not. Maybe they care about just getting their job done. So the question is of what is your consumer persona and what are the jobs these personas needs to be do, and then based on that and also your solution specifics, you can probably try to decide how much testing is needed. There is also, interestingly enough, you could also use a lot more approaches in terms of testing with your users, in terms of creating experiments, doing A/B testing on what features are doing. You can listening to users based on metrics and feedback. So in all of these tools, right now there is also big development in terms of getting like built-in metrics for a lot of core pieces to work. Like in Power Platform, I think just this month they started to add metrics for whatever your app is used at all. How long people are waiting until first action and so on. So because when I was working at Microsoft, we also changed a lot for testing strategy, more to drive, to see from user behaviors more, and on our side do less testing actually. So like for build verification testing, we try to automate it as much as possible. We still did some sanity checking, but we try to do it more exploratory and having people to follow like test plans exactly for certain products. We just care that the core capability of product is working. We are not breaking build, people can make calls, people can send messages and receive them, and everything else is nice to have. But then when we released product, we had staged rollouts, and if we saw the data which shows that something was bad, we could always roll back. Or stop rollout, release a fix or something like that. So there is, listening is actually a very important part of that, and that's also coming into these tools. So I think, from my opinion, depending on systems, I would say user feedback in some indirect or direct way is more important than having big QA team. But QA people need to be able to set up these processes and manage them, and that's more capability question. Okay? Yep. Okay. So I'm done. Thank you.